And let's turn attention now to Asia, where the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning says India is using visa restrictions as a tool to prevent media contacts between it and China, thereby creating tension in bilateral relations. Mr. Mao says Chinese journalists have suffered unfair and discriminatory treatment in India for a long time. Due to this claim, China and India have effectively kicked out a large number of each other's journalists recently by denying them visa renewals. In 2017, the Indian side shortened the period of validity of visas held by Chinese journalists in India to between 1 and 3 months without the provision of valid reasons. Since 2020, India has allegedly refused to review and approve Chinese journalist applications for stationing in India. Until now, India has not renewed the visa of the last Chinese journalist in the country. Now, for a look at the situation between India and Chinese government, a journalist in New Delhi, Surinder Oberoi, joins me via Zoom. Good to have you join us.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me in your program.
So not usually, diplomats bear the brunt of diplomatic spat between countries. They are the ones who are usually expelled from countries. But why are journalists the target of this latest spat between India and China?
See, first of all, when I spoke with the official spokesperson here, they have completely denied that they have never expelled any of these Chinese journalists who are not in many a number in India. There are 3 or 4 people who have been working around. And right now also they say that there is 1 or 2 Chinese reporters present here and are working as the other foreign correspondents are working in the country. Having said that, but if you look into the relationship which has been between China and India, it's not only on this journalistic front, but also on the business front, where many of these logistics between the 2 countries have been delayed, especially the cargo ships. And this thing has been happening, a tit-for-tat policy which has been happening. I mean, Indians claim that there were 2 journalists of India who were asked to leave. Their visas were never renewed. And also the 3rd person who still had it, his accreditation there in the Beijing, was not allowed to stay there. So this tit-for-tat policy has been continuing since 2020. If you remember, there were clashes between Indian and Chinese, despite an agreement that they are not going to use any arms or ammunition on the border. And the border area, which is called as line of actual control, is the one which divides the 2 countries. It's around 3,500 kilometers. And there are massive presence of troops, both PLA of China as well as Indian Army on their own sides. And these clashes have taken place intermittently. In fact, just in December 2022, there are clashes in another state, which is called as Arunachal Pradesh on the border. But again, things were immediately neutralized. Why? The good thing between the 2 countries is that the talks between the military commanders as well as between the bureaucrats continue. And I'm quite hopeful that the G20 summit, which is going to happen here in September, and before that, there is going to be a Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in Delhi in July, where the head of the Chinese premium will be here, and they will have talks between the 2 heads, like Modi, the Prime Minister, as well as Xi Jinping. Earlier, they were talking to each other very well, but as I said, it was 2020 when clashes at Galwan, which is called as the Ladakh Hills, a very high altitude area. And that's the place
you know, you have painted a very clear picture, because this is not just about the journalists. We know that this diplomatic spat between China and India is about border conflict. It is about structural issues. And there are also very clear differences in the regional order in Asia that the 2 countries desire. India wants a multipolar Asia, but China wants to be the dominant power in Asia. But how does this latest tension play into that? And then what would it mean for the Indo-Pacific region?
See, as far as these things are concerned, this is just another aberration, I would say, between the two countries. As you rightly said, that it's the fight going on between the Indo-Pacific, which usually is a quad, where India is one of the partners of the three more or less Western countries, as well as India is balancing themselves by not strategically showcasing themselves as a party to everyone. I would say that earlier they were non-aligned, and now you can call them as that India is now multi-aligned. They are in every organization, and they know that they cannot have be a party in the Cold War, which is going on between China and US. To be direct and bold, I would say that India will never try to be a party either towards the US, what is happening around, nor India is going to go close to China and Russia access lobby. Even though India and Russia are strategically one of the best partners and they need each other at each and every time. But as there are many of the pending issues between China and India, and the major one is, of course, the border issues. There are disputes. There is some area where both of them have been talking. There have been 25 rounds of talks which have taken place between the two countries, and not only between India and China. Now, China has also what we know has got a habit of what is called as a salami slicing. They just keep on sending their troops a little ahead. It's not only in China, but they have also set their positions in the Bhutan tri-junction area, where India, Bhutan, and China also meet to each other. And there again, the confrontation took place when Chinese wanted to construct a road. Now imagine if Chinese were at the high altitude. Security-wise, it would have been very difficult for India to control them. And there is a chicken neck, which is just 15-kilometer corridor connecting the northeastern states, which are 7 or 8, bordering all China. That in case of a conflict, there could have been much attack. So India did not allow that. And there were a huge confrontation. And thankfully, after negotiations, things were resolved. In fact, if you ask me, both India and China really want to develop a good relationship. But there have been issues. For example, China is not happy with India for allowing still the Tibetans to continue having their exiled government in India, which is, of course, quite
you mentioned, so apologies for jumping in, but you mentioned the Shanghai Cooperation. You also mentioned the G20. We know that both countries are members of the BRICS Alliance, and the foreign ministers of the BRICS Alliance are meeting in South Africa now. And we'll see whether they can use this meeting or that of the summit in August to resolve some of these issues. Pleasure speaking with you, journalist Surinder Oberoi.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's always a pleasure to speak with you.